The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. Maya sat there, her leg bouncing nervously, watching the clock on the wall tick forward. She'd been coming to this hospital for 3 weeks now, doing test after test. Blood work, scans, more blood work. Each time the doctors said they needed to check one more thing. She was only 34. She ran 3 times a week. She ate her vegetables. She didn't smoke. This was supposed to be the time when life was finally coming together, not falling apart. Just last month, she'd gotten a promotion at the elementary school where she taught 3rd grade. The kids had thrown her a little party with homemade cards and cookies their parents had sent in. Maya Chen? A nurse stood at the doorway, clipboard in hand, wearing that practiced smile that gave nothing away. Maya followed her down the long hallway, past rooms where other people waited for their own news. Good news, bad news, life-changing news. Her heart hammered in her chest. The nurse led her to a small office where Dr. Patterson was already sitting, and something about the way he looked at her made her stomach drop. "Please sit down," he said, and there was a gentleness in his voice that scared her more than anything. Maya sat. She gripped the armrests of the chair like they were the only solid things left in the world. Dr. Patterson didn't waste time with small talk. Maybe he knew that waiting would only make it worse. "The results came back from your biopsy. I'm afraid it's pancreatic cancer. Stage 4, the room seemed to tilt. Maya heard the words, but they didn't make sense. Cancer, stage 4. Those were things that happened to other people. To older people. To people who had already lived full lives. How long? Her voice came out as a whisper. Dr. Patterson folded his hands on his desk. It's hard to say exactly. Every case is different. But typically we're looking at 6 months, possibly 8 with treatment. 6 months. Half a year. Maya did the math automatically in her head. She wouldn't see next summer. Wouldn't see her students graduate to 4th grade. Wouldn't see another Christmas. The doctor kept talking about treatment options, clinical trials, support groups. Maya nodded like she was listening, but all she could think was that she had a deadline now, an expiration date. Like milk in a refrigerator. She left the hospital in a daze. The parking lot looked the same as when she'd arrived an hour ago, but everything felt different. The sun was too bright. The birds were too loud. People walked past her, talking on their phones, complaining about traffic, planning their weekends. Didn't they know? Didn't they understand how precious this all was? Maya sat in her car for 20 minutes before she could make herself turn the key. She needed to call someone. She needed to tell someone. But saying it out loud would make it real. Finally, she called her brother. "Hey, what's up?" David answered on the 2nd ring. She could hear kids yelling in the background. His kids, her niece and nephew. They were 6 and 8 now, growing up so fast. "David." Her voice cracked. "I need to tell you something." The noise in the background faded. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And that's when she started crying. Big, ugly, gasping sobs that she couldn't control. Through the tears, she told him everything. The cancer. The timeline. The absolute unfairness of it all. David went quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm coming over. Don't argue with me. I'm leaving right now." He lived 3 hours away in a bigger city where he worked as an architect. He had a wife, Rachel, and those 2 kids, and a busy life full of soccer practices and school events and deadlines. But he didn't hesitate. That was David, always there when it mattered. Maya drove home on autopilot. Her apartment looked exactly like she'd left it that morning. Dishes in the sink. A pile of ungraded homework on the coffee table. A half-finished cup of tea on the counter, now cold. She'd made that tea planning to drink it after her appointment, never imagining what that appointment would bring. She walked through her small space like she was seeing it for the first time. The wall she'd been meaning to paint for 2 years. The bookshelf full of novels she'd bought but never read, always telling herself she'd get to them eventually. The piano in the corner that she'd inherited from her mother, promising herself she'd take lessons someday. Someday. That word meant something different now. Someday had an ending. Maya opened her laptop and started Googling. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer survival rates, treatment options, miracle recoveries. She scrolled through medical articles and patient forums looking for hope, for someone who'd beaten the odds. The statistics were brutal. Most people didn't make it past a year. Some only made it a few months. She slammed the laptop shut and pressed her palms against her eyes. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She'd been careful. She'd been responsible. She'd saved money, built a career, tried to do everything right. She'd always told herself that the fun stuff could wait until she was more stable, more secure, more ready. But ready for what? She'd been waiting for the perfect moment to travel, to take chances, to really live. And now there was no time left. Her phone buzzed. A text from David, on my way. Be there in 2.5 hours. Hang tight. Maya looked around her apartment again. At the travel brochures she'd collected over the years. Tucked in a drawer. Italy, Japan, Peru. Places she'd dreamed of seeing but never quite made happen. At the dancing shoes she'd bought 3 years ago for salsa classes she never attended. At the art supplies still in their packaging, waiting for her to get brave enough to try painting. She'd spent so much time preparing for the future that she'd forgotten to live in the present. And now the future had been cut short, and the present was all she had left. When David finally arrived, he didn't knock. He just used his spare key and came straight in, finding her sitting on the couch in the dark. He sat down next to her and pulled her into a hug, and she cried into his shoulder like she was a kid again. I'm scared, she whispered. I know, he said. I know. They sat there for a long time, not talking, just being together. Eventually, Rachel arrived with the kids, and they all gathered in Maya's tiny living room. Her nephew brought her a drawing he'd made in the car on the way over. Her niece climbed into her lap and asked if she was sad. Yes, sweetheart, Maya said, smoothing down the girl's hair. I'm sad. It's okay to be sad, the little girl said seriously. Mommy says sometimes we need to be sad before we can feel better. Maya smiled despite everything. Kids had a way of cutting through to the simple truth of things. She was sad. She was terrified. She was angry. And all of that was okay. That night, after everyone had gone home, Maya couldn't sleep. She got up and found a notebook in her desk drawer. She opened it to a blank page and started writing. At the top, she wrote, Things I wish I'd done. The list started small. Watch a sunrise from somewhere beautiful. Dance in the rain. Eat real gelato in Italy. Learn to play the piano. Paint something even if it's terrible. Then it got deeper. Fall in love. Make a real difference in someone's life. Leave something behind that matters. Feel truly alive even just once. She looked at the list and felt something shift inside her. Yes, she had a deadline now. Yes, her time was limited. But it wasn't over yet. She still had months. Maybe she couldn't do everything she'd dreamed of, but maybe she could do something. Maya left the notebook on the kitchen counter and finally went to bed. She didn't know it then, but that list would change everything. Not just for her, but for the people who loved her most. The chemotherapy started 2 weeks after the diagnosis. Maya had done her research, read the pamphlets, talked to other patients in online forums. She thought she was prepared. She wasn't. The first session wasn't as bad as she'd feared. She sat in a reclining chair in a room full of other people, all connected to IV poles, all fighting their own battles. A nurse with kind eyes named Patricia got her settled, wrapping a warm blanket around her shoulders even though the room wasn't cold. First time? Patricia asked, adjusting the IV. Maya nodded. Is it that obvious? Patricia smiled. You all have the same look, like you're waiting for something terrible to happen. It's not fun, I won't lie to you, but you're stronger than you think. The drugs made her feel strange. Not sick right away, just off. Like she was slightly disconnected from her body. She watched the clear liquid drip slowly into her veins and tried not to think about what it was doing inside her. Killing the cancer cells, yes, but killing other things too. She went home that evening feeling okay. Almost normal. She even ate dinner, heated up the soup that David's wife Rachel had brought over. But then around midnight, the nausea hit. She spent the next 3 hours curled up on her bathroom floor, too sick to even make it back to bed. This became her new routine. Chemo every 2 weeks, 3 days of feeling like death, a few days of slowly recovering, then a week where she almost felt like herself again, before it was time to do it all over. Her students at school noticed. She'd always been energetic. The teacher who did silly voices when she read stories, who played games with them at recess. Now she tired easily. She had to sit down more often. One of her third graders, a sharp little girl named Lily, asked her one day if she was sick. Maya knelt down to her level. I am, sweetie, but the doctors are helping me feel better. Lily hugged her hard. My grandma was sick too. She's okay now, though. Maya hugged her back, blinking away tears. She didn't have the heart to tell this 8-year-old, though, that not everyone got okay. On her bad days, the ones where she couldn't get out of bed, where even water tasted wrong, Maya would stare at the ceiling and wonder what the point was. The chemo might buy her a few extra months. Might. Was it worth feeling this horrible just to drag things out a little longer? But then she'd think about her students, about David's kids, about the small moments that still brought joy. The way her neighbor's cat would visit her balcony every morning. The smell of coffee. The feeling of sun on her face. Maybe those extra months mattered. One sleepless night, about 6 weeks after starting treatment, Maya found herself at the kitchen table at 3 a.m. She couldn't sleep. The nausea had passed, but her mind was racing. She'd been thinking about all the things she'd put off, all the dreams she'd postponed. That's when she saw it. The notebook on the counter, exactly where she'd left it weeks ago. The list she'd written the night of her diagnosis. Things I wish I'd done. She picked it up and read through it again. Watch a sunrise from somewhere beautiful. Dance in the rain. Eat real gelato in Italy. Learn to play the piano. Fall in love. Make a difference. Leave something behind. Some of these seemed impossible now. She could barely make it through a workday. How was she supposed to travel to Italy? How was she supposed to fall in love when she looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself anymore? Her hair was starting to thin. Her skin looked gray. She'd lost weight she didn't have to lose. But maybe, she thought, maybe some of these things were still possible, in some form. Maybe not the exact way she'd imagined, but something. She left the notebook on the counter and went back to bed. She didn't know that David had visited 3 days earlier, bringing groceries while she was at work. She didn't know that he'd seen the list, that he'd taken a photo of it with his phone, that he'd been thinking about it ever since. The next weekend, David showed up at her apartment unannounced. He did that a lot now, checking on her, making sure she was eating, keeping her company. Maya had stopped protesting. The truth was she was lonely. Most of her friends had drifted away, not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know what to say. How do you make small talk with someone who's dying? Want to go for a drive? David asked. Maya looked down at her sweatpants and oversized hoodie. I look terrible. You look fine, come on. Fresh air will do you good. She was too tired to argue. She grabbed a jacket and followed him to his car. They drove out of the city, heading toward the hills. Maya leaned her head against the window, watching the buildings give way to trees, then open fields. Where are we going? She asked. You'll see. They drove for almost an hour. The sky was starting to lighten, turning from black to deep blue to pink. David pulled off onto a dirt road that led up a hill. At the top, he parked and got out. Come on, he said, opening her door. Maya followed him to the edge of the hill. Below them, the valley stretched out, covered in morning mist. And on the horizon, the sun was starting to rise. They stood there in silence, watching as the sky turned gold, then orange, then brilliant pink. The sun climbed slowly, burning away the mist, revealing the world below. It was beautiful, simple and perfect and beautiful. Your list, David said quietly. Watch a sunrise from somewhere beautiful. I figured you didn't have to go to Mount Everest or the Grand Canyon. Beautiful is wherever you find it. Maya felt her throat tighten. You saw my list. I did. I hope that's okay. She nodded, unable to speak. She watched the sunrise and felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Not happiness exactly, but something close. A moment of peace. A reminder that the world was still full of beautiful things, even if she wouldn't be here to see them all. On the drive back, David was quiet. Maya could tell he was thinking about something. What? She finally asked. He glanced at her. I've been thinking about your list. About how much time you spend feeling sick from the treatment or tired or scared. And I just thought, maybe we could do some of those things, the ones that are possible. While you still can. David, I can barely get through a work week. I can't travel. I can't, not the big things, he interrupted, but the little ones, or versions of them. Like today, you wanted to see a beautiful sunrise. We just did. There are other things on your list we could do too. Different versions. Smaller maybe, but real. Maya stared out the window. Why would you do that? You have your own life, your family, your work. You're my family, David said simply. You're my little sister. And if I can't give you more time, at least let me try to give you some good memories in the time you have. Maya felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't want to be anyone's project. I don't want to be pitied. This isn't pity, David said firmly. This is love. There's a difference. They drove the rest of the way in silence, but it was a different kind of silence. Warmer, full of possibility instead of dread. Over the next few weeks, Maya fell into a routine. Work when she could. Chemo every 2 weeks, recovery, repeat. But now there was something else too. David would show up at random times with surprises. Small things. A box of really good chocolates because her list had mentioned eating gelato in Italy, and he figured really good chocolate was at least in the same category. A video call with one of her former students who'd moved away, because she'd written about making a difference in people's lives. One afternoon, Maya came home to find her brother in her apartment, which wasn't unusual. But this time he'd brought the piano tuner. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Your list," he said. "Learn to play piano." "Well, you have a piano, and now it's tuned. I also signed you up for lessons. The teacher does house calls, so on your good days she can come here." "David, I don't have time to learn piano. You're alive right now," he said, "and right now is all any of us really have. Cancer or no cancer." The piano teacher, an older woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, came twice a week. Maya was terrible at first. Her fingers felt clumsy on the keys. She couldn't read the music. But Mrs. Rodriguez was patient, and slowly Maya started to learn. Simple songs at first, children's songs. But they were hers. She was creating something. On her bad days, the days after chemo when she couldn't get out of bed, Maya would think about the sunrise, about the chocolate melting on her tongue, about the simple melody she'd learned to play on the piano. Small things, but they added up. They reminded her that life wasn't over yet. She kept the list on her refrigerator now, looking at it every morning. Some things still seemed impossible, but others, maybe, just maybe. One evening, David called her. "Look outside your window, right now." Maya went to her window and looked out. It was raining, soft and steady. And there, in the courtyard of her apartment building, David stood with an umbrella. "Come down," he said through the phone. "You wanted to dance in the rain. Well, it's raining. I'll get wet. I'll get sick." "You're already sick," David said gently. "And the rain is warm. Come on." "Live a little." Maya hesitated. Then she thought about her list. About all the things she'd put off, waiting for the right time. There was no right time anymore. There was only now. She grabbed a jacket and went downstairs. Maya stepped into the rain and immediately understood why people wrote songs about moments like this. The drops were warm, softer than she'd expected. They fell on her face, her hand soaking into her jacket. David stood there grinning, holding his umbrella off to the side so he was getting just as wet. "You're crazy," she said, but she was smiling too. "Maybe," he agreed, "but so are you for coming down here." They stood there for a moment, just two people getting rained on in an apartment courtyard. Then David held out his hand. "You wanted to dance." Maya took his hand. She couldn't remember the last time she'd danced. Maybe a wedding 5 years ago. Maybe longer. David pulled her close, one hand on her back, and they started swaying. There was no music except the sound of rain hitting pavement. No choreography. Just two siblings dancing in the rain like idiots. Maya started laughing. Real, genuine laughter that came from somewhere deep inside. When was the last time she'd laughed like this? David spun her around and she stumbled, and they both nearly fell over. They were soaked through now, their shoes squelching on the wet ground. "We look ridiculous," Maya said. "Absolutely," David agreed. "But who cares?" Who cares? That became Maya's new philosophy. Who cares if she looked sick? Who cares if people stared? Who cares if she wasn't doing things the right way? She was dying. She got to make her own rules now. After that night, something shifted. David stopped asking permission. He just started showing up with plans. Sometimes Rachel came too, and the kids. They made everything feel normal, like Maya wasn't sick, just someone they wanted to spend time with. A few weeks later, David called her on a Thursday morning. "Don't make plans for tomorrow evening." "I never make plans anymore," Maya said. "My biggest plan is usually deciding which pajamas to wear." "Well, tomorrow wear real clothes. Nice ones." The next evening, David picked her up at 6. Maya had put on a dress she hadn't worn in months. It hung looser than it used to, but it still fit. She'd even put on makeup, trying to cover the dark circles under her eyes. They drove across town to a neighborhood Maya didn't recognize. David parked in front of a small house with a big backyard. String lights were hung everywhere, glowing in the early evening light. There was a table set up with a red checkered tablecloth. And the smell. Maya's mouth watered. "What is this?" she asked. "You said you wanted to eat gelato in an Italian piazza," David said. "Well, I can't take you to Italy, but I can bring a little bit of Italy here." Rachel appeared from the house carrying a tray. David's kids ran up to Maya, excited to show her everything. They'd made paper decorations. They'd helped set the table. Her nephew had practiced saying buonasera all week. They sat down to dinner as the sun set. Real Italian food, catered from the best restaurant David could find. Fresh bread, pasta that melted in your mouth, wine that Maya was probably not supposed to drink with her medications but did anyway. And yes, gelato. 3 different flavors. In the background, someone had set up a speaker playing Italian music. The string lights twinkled overhead. For a moment, if Maya closed her eyes and just listened, she could almost believe she was somewhere far away. Somewhere beautiful. Somewhere that wasn't a backyard in the suburbs while she was dying. But then she opened her eyes and saw David watching her, nervous and hopeful. She saw Rachel teaching the kids how to twirl their pasta properly. She saw the effort, the love, the sheer amount of thought that had gone into this. "This is perfect," Maya said, and she meant it. David spent the next months doing this, finding creative ways to check items off Maya's list, or at least give her versions of them. Some worked better than others. The fall in love one was tricky. David couldn't exactly manufacture a romance, but one Saturday he arranged for them to go to an animal shelter. Maya had always wanted a pet but had put it off because of her work schedule, her small apartment, all the usual excuses. "You don't have to worry about long-term anymore," David said gently, "and animals are great company." They walked through the shelter, past the barking dogs and meowing cats. Maya felt overwhelmed. How was she supposed to choose? How could she bring an animal into her life when she might not be around to take care of it much longer? Then she saw him. An old orange cat, sitting calmly in his cage, watching her with green eyes. The shelter volunteer said his name was Cooper. He was 12 years old. His previous owner had passed away, and nobody wanted an old cat. Most people wanted kittens. Maya put her hand against the cage. Cooper walked over and pressed his face against her fingers. "I'll take him," she said. David tried to talk about logistics. Who would take Cooper after? Where he would go? But Maya shook her head. "Right now," she said. "I want him right now. We'll figure out the rest later." Cooper came home with her that day. He was old and slow and set in his ways, just like Maya felt now, but he was good company. He slept on her bed, purring loudly. On her worst days, when she couldn't get out of bed, Cooper stayed with her. There was something comforting about another living thing who didn't need her to be anything but present. The make a difference part of her list bothered Maya the most. She'd been a teacher for 10 years. She'd taught hundreds of students. But had she really made a difference? Would anyone remember her after she was gone? David found her crying one evening, staring at her laptop. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I'm looking at all these stories about people who did amazing things with their lives," she said. "People who cured diseases or started charities or changed the world. And what have I done? I taught 3rd grade. I graded spelling tests. Who's going to remember that?" David sat down next to her. "Do you remember Mr. Harrison?" Maya looked up. "My 5th grade teacher?" "Yeah." "What do you remember about him?" Maya thought. He was kind. He let me stay after school to work on my science project. He told me I was smart when I didn't believe it myself." "Did he cure any diseases?" "No." "Change the world?" "Not in any big way, I guess." "But he changed your world," David said. "And you remember him 30 years later. That's making a difference, Maya. You've been that person for probably hundreds of kids. You just don't know which ones yet." A few days later, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a letter from a former student, someone Maya had taught 7 years ago. The girl was in college now, studying to be a teacher. She wrote about how Maya had been the first person to make her feel like school could be fun, how Maya had encouraged her to read, even though she struggled with it, how that encouragement had changed everything. Maya cried reading that letter. Happy tears this time. She had made a difference. Maybe not in a big world-changing way, but in the way that mattered. One person at a time. As the months went on, David kept finding ways to work through the list. Some things were easier than others. Some had to be adapted so much that they barely resembled the original dream. But each one meant something. For paint something, even if it's terrible, David bought her a canvas and paints and set them up in her living room. Maya had no idea what she was doing. Her painting looked like something a 5-year-old might make. But she didn't care. She painted a sunrise trying to capture the one they'd watched together on that hill. It was messy and amateurish, but it was hers. For Learn Something New, David brought over his kids' science kit. They spent an afternoon making a volcano erupt on Maya's kitchen table, making a mess and laughing like children. Each experience added up. They weren't the grand adventures Maya had once imagined. She didn't travel the world. She didn't fall madly in love. She didn't do anything that would make the news or go down in history. But she felt alive. More alive than she'd felt in years. Maybe ever. One Sunday afternoon, Maya was at David's house for family dinner. This had become a weekly tradition. The kids were running around the backyard. Rachel was in the kitchen. David was manning the grill, badly, like always. Maya sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket even though it wasn't that cold. She tired easily now. The chemo was wearing her down. But she was happy. Genuinely happy. David came over and sat next to her. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," she admitted. "But good. Really good." "I've been keeping track," David said, "of your list. We've done almost everything, in one way or another." Maya pulled out her phone and looked at the photo of the list she kept there. He was right. Sunrise, check. Dancing in the rain, check. Italian piazza, sort of check. Piano, learning, making a difference, check. All the small things, all the adapted dreams, they'd done them. There's still one thing, Maya said quietly. David looked at the list. Fall in love. Yeah. Maya, I know, she said quickly. You can't manufacture that. It's okay. Some things just aren't meant to happen. But David was quiet, thoughtful. I don't know. Maybe you're thinking about it wrong. What do you mean? Love isn't just romantic, he said. It's this too. It's family. It's friendship. It's Cooper purring on your lap. It's Rachel bringing you soup when you're sick. It's my kids drawing you pictures. Maybe you've been surrounded by love this whole time. Maya felt tears pricking her eyes again. She cried so easily these days. That's cheating. That wasn't what I meant. Wasn't it, though? David asked. You wanted to feel loved, to matter to someone, to have that connection that makes life worth living. Well, you have that. You've always had it. Maya leaned her head on her brother's shoulder. In the backyard, the kids were chasing fireflies. Rachel came out with lemonade. Cooper had somehow followed them over and was sitting in a patch of sun, looking content. You're right, Maya said. I have been loved. I am loved. Exactly, David said. So technically we can check that one off too. 3 months had passed since David started working through Maya's list. 3 months of small adventures and adapted dreams. 3 months of living instead of just surviving. Maya had exceeded her original prognosis. The 6 months the doctor had given her had come and gone. She was still here. Weaker than before, but here. It was a Tuesday evening when Maya discovered what David had really been doing. She'd borrowed his phone to check the weather app because hers was dead and charging. That's when she saw it. The photos folder. Right at the top. A picture of handwritten words. Her list. Maya's hands shook as she opened the photo. It was dated from months ago, right after her diagnosis. She'd left the notebook on her counter, and David must have seen it when he brought groceries. He'd photographed it. He'd kept it all this time. She scrolled through his recent photos, pictures of restaurant menus, screenshots of weather forecasts. search histories about accessible hiking trails, notes about her good days and bad days, when she had energy, when the treatments were scheduled. He'd been planning everything, researching, preparing, working systematically through her list like it was the most important project of his life. Maya sat down on the couch, David's phone still in her hand. All this time, she'd thought these were random kindnesses. Sweet gestures. But they weren't random at all. David had been doing this on purpose. Every single thing. The sunrise, the rain, the Italian dinner, the piano lessons, all of it. He'd been giving her back her dreams. The front door opened. David walked in, carrying takeout containers. "Hey, I brought Thai food I know you've been craving." He stopped when he saw her face, saw his phone in her hand. "Oh, you've been doing this the whole time," Maya said. Her voice came out strange. Not angry, not sad, something else entirely. David set down the food slowly. "Yeah, I have. The whole time. Everything on my list. As much as I could," he said. "Some things I had to adapt. Some things I couldn't do at all. But I tried." Maya looked down at the phone screen, at her own handwriting captured in that photo. "Why didn't you tell me?" David sat down across from her. "At first I didn't want you to feel like a project, or like I was pitying you. I just wanted to give you good days. Then later I guess I worried that if you knew it might feel forced, like checking boxes instead of actually living. How long have you been planning this?" "Since the day I saw the list. I took a leave of absence from work. Rachel and I talked about it. We agreed it was what we needed to do." Maya's eyes went wide. "You took a leave of absence?" "David, that's months without pay." "Your family, my family's fine," he said firmly. "And you're my family too. The most important family. I can always make more money. I can always go back to work. But I can't get more time with you." That's when Maya started crying. Not sad tears. Not scared tears. Something bigger than that. She was crying because someone had seen her. Really seen her. Had looked at her desperate midnight scribbles and decided they mattered. Had put aside his own life to give meaning to hers. "You gave up everything," she said through tears. "I gave up nothing," David said, moving to sit next to her. "I got to spend time with my sister. I got to see you smile again. See you laugh. That's not a sacrifice. That's a gift." "But I'm still dying," Maya said. "All of this and I'm still dying." "We're all dying," David said gently. "Some of us just have a clearer timeline. But Maya, these past few months watching you live again, really live, that's been the best thing I've ever been part of. You're not the same person you were after that diagnosis. You're lighter, happier, more present." Maya wiped her eyes. "I have been happier. Even with everything. Even though I'm sick. That's what matters," David said. "Not how long you live, but how you live." They sat together for a long time. The Thai food got cold. Cooper jumped up on the couch between them, purring. Outside it was getting dark. "Thank you," Maya finally said. "For all of it. For seeing that list and not just feeling sorry for me. For actually doing something about it." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do," Maya said. "Because you didn't just give me experiences. You gave me something to look forward to. You gave me reasons to keep going through the treatments, through the pain. You gave me hope." Over the next few weeks, Maya saw everything differently. Each surprise David had planned took on new meaning. The afternoon he'd set up a telescope so she could look at the stars, because her list had mentioned wanting to see the northern lights. The day Rachel had brought over a book of poetry, and they'd spent hours reading to each other, because her list had mentioned wanting to understand poetry. The morning David's kids had performed a play they'd written just for her, because she'd written about wanting to see a Broadway show. Every single thing had been intentional, planned, loved into existence. Maya started thinking about what David had given up to do this. Not just the leave from work, but the time away from his kids. The stress on Rachel. The money spent on experiences and surprises. They'd done this for her. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. She called Rachel one afternoon. "Can we talk, just us?" They met at a coffee shop near Maya's apartment. Rachel looked tired. She was holding down the fort at home with 2 kids while David spent most of his free time with Maya. But when she saw Maya, she smiled. "How are you feeling?" Rachel asked. "That's what everyone asks," Maya said. "But I want to know how you're feeling." "This has been hard on you too." Rachel stirred her coffee. It has been. I won't lie. There are days when I'm exhausted, when I wish David was home more, when I resent the cancer for stealing our normal life. I'm sorry, Maya said. Don't be, Rachel said quickly. Because here's the thing. My kids are learning something important. They're learning that when people you love are hurting, you show up. You don't just send a card or make a phone call. You show up. And yes, it's hard, but it's also teaching them about love. Real love. The kind that costs something. Still, Maya said, you've given up a lot. We've gained a lot too, Rachel said. We've gotten to watch you come back to life. That first month after your diagnosis, when we'd visit, you looked like a ghost, like you'd already given up. But now you laugh. You make jokes. You have this light in your eyes again. That's worth everything. Maya felt her throat tighten. I don't know how to repay you. Any of you. You don't repay love, Rachel said simply. You receive it. You let it change you. That's enough. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about everything that had happened. About the list. About David's secret project. About the way her last months had been filled with joy instead of just dread. She got up and found a new notebook. She opened it to the first page and started writing. Not a list this time. A letter she wrote to David, to Rachel, to the kids. She wrote about what their love had meant to her, how it had transformed her dying into living, how it had given her the strength to keep fighting, even when fighting seemed pointless. Then she started writing other letters. To her students, past and present, to her friends who'd drifted away, not blaming them, just telling them what she'd learned. To strangers who might one day face what she was facing, the letters all said the same thing in different ways. Don't wait. Don't postpone your life for some imaginary perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. Right now. This moment. Reading these words, breathing this air. This is it. This is life. Don't miss it by always looking ahead to some better future that might never come. Maya wrote about how she'd spent years saving money for trips she never took, putting off joy until she was more stable, more ready, more deserving, and how cancer had shown her that there was no more ready, there was only now. She wrote about David, about how one person's love could literally change the shape of your life. How kindness wasn't just nice, it was transformative, it was powerful, it was everything. As dawn broke, Maya was still writing. Her hand cramped, her eyes burned, but she kept going, because she'd realized something. This was her legacy. Not the teaching, though that mattered. Not the painting she'd made or the piano she'd learned to play. These words, this truth she'd learned at such a terrible cost. The next time David visited, Maya showed him the letters. What are these? He asked, flipping through the pages. My way of making a difference, Maya said. You help me check off everything on my list. But I want to add one more thing. I want other people to learn what you taught me. That life is happening right now. That love is the whole point. That we don't have to wait for permission to start living. David read through some of the letters, his eyes shining. What are you going to do with them? I don't know yet, Maya admitted. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But I had to write them. I had to get these thoughts out of my head and onto paper while I still can. They're beautiful, David said. You should share them. Really share them. Maybe start a blog? Or a video channel? Let people hear your story. Maya laughed, but it was a weak sound. She was getting tired more easily now. The cancer was progressing. They both knew it, even if they didn't talk about it. I don't have the energy for that. Then I'll help, David said. We'll do it together. Like everything else. And they did. David set up a simple blog. Maya recorded herself reading some of the letters on her phone. Her voice was weak, shaky sometimes, but it was real, raw, honest. They didn't expect anyone to read it. It was just one more item on the list in a way. One more dream fulfilled. But people did read it. Somehow the blog got shared. Then shared again. People started commenting, thanking her for her honesty, for her wisdom, for reminding them what mattered. A woman wrote that she'd finally booked the trip to see her sister after reading Maya's words. A man wrote that he'd quit the job he hated and started pursuing his real passion. A teenager wrote that Maya's letters had helped her through her own health crisis. One by one, the messages came in. And Maya realized that she was making a difference after all, not in the way she'd imagined, but in a way that was so much more meaningful than she could have dreamed. Maya lived 11 months after her diagnosis. 3 months longer than the doctors had predicted. 3 months that felt like both a lifetime and a single breath. In those final months, her body grew weaker, but something inside her grew stronger. The blog David had helped her start reached thousands of people, then tens of thousands. People from countries she'd never heard of wrote to tell her how her words had changed them, how they'd stopped putting off their dreams, how they'd told people they loved them, how they'd started really living instead of just going through the motions. A journalist contacted her wanting to write a story. Maya did the interview from her couch, too weak to sit up for long. The article ran in a major newspaper. The headline read, "Woman with terminal cancer teaches us how to live." Maya laughed when she saw it. "That's a bit dramatic," she told David. "Maybe," he said. "But it's also true." More messages came. Some made her laugh. Some made her cry. One woman wrote that she'd been planning to end her own life, but reading Maya's letters had given her a reason to hold on. That message haunted Maya in the best way. She'd saved a life by losing hers. There was poetry in that. The elementary school where Maya taught threw her a surprise appreciation day. Even though she'd stopped working months ago, unable to keep up with the demands of the classroom, the school wanted to honor her. Current students and former ones showed up. Parents brought flowers. The principal gave a speech about dedication and impact. But the moment that broke Maya was when her students presented her with a book. They'd all written letters to her, decorated them with drawings, bound them together. "Thank you for teaching us," the cover read. "You made learning fun. You made us feel special. You made us believe we could do anything." Maya held that book like it was made of gold. This was her legacy. Not lesson plans or test scores, but these children who remembered her kindness, who'd carry her encouragement with them into their futures. As winter approached, Maya's health deteriorated rapidly. The cancer had spread. The treatment stopped working. Her doctor gently suggested it was time to think about hospice care, about making her comfortable, about saying goodbye. David was with her when the doctor gave this news. Maya had known it was coming. "You can't fight forever." But hearing it out loud still hurt. "How long?" she asked. "Weeks," the doctor said. "Maybe a month or two." "I'm sorry," Maya nodded. She'd had almost a year. That was more than many people got. More than she'd expected. That night, David stayed over. They ordered pizza and watched old movies, just like they'd done when they were kids. Cooper curled up between them, purring. It felt normal. Almost like the cancer wasn't there. Almost like they had all the time in the world. "I need to ask you something," Maya said during a commercial break. "Anything," David said. "Cooper, after I'm gone. Will you take him?" David's eyes filled with tears. "Of course. The kids love him. He'll be spoiled. And my letters. The blog, will you keep it going? Keep sharing it?" "Yes, I promise." "And one more thing," Maya said. Her voice was getting weaker. She was so tired these days. "I need you to promise me you'll live. Really live. Don't spend years mourning me. Don't put your life on hold. Do the things you've always wanted to do. The things you've been putting off. Promise me." David was crying openly now. "Maya, promise me," she insisted. "You've spent the last year making sure I lived fully. Now I need you to do the same for yourself. For Rachel. For the kids. Show them what you showed me. That life is happening right now. I promise," David whispered. The hospice nurses started coming daily. They were kind, efficient, gentle. They managed her pain, kept her comfortable, explained to David what to expect as the end approached. Maya drifted in and out of consciousness more often now. Sometimes she'd wake up confused, not sure where she was or what day it was. But in her lucid moments, she was at peace. She looked around her apartment, at the paintings she'd made hanging on the wall, at Cooper sleeping in his favorite sunny spot, at the photos David had framed of all their adventures over the past year, the sunrise, the rain, the Italian dinner, all of it preserved forever. One afternoon, Rachel brought the kids to visit. They'd been staying away, not wanting to see their aunt so sick. But Rachel thought it was important they say goodbye, even if they didn't fully understand what that meant. Maya's niece, now 9 years old, climbed carefully onto the bed beside her. "Aunt Maya, are you going to get better?" Maya took the girl's hand. It took effort to speak now. Everything took effort. "No, sweetheart. I'm not. My body is very tired. Are you scared?" the little girl asked. Not anymore, Maya said honestly. I was at first, but not now. Why not? Because I got to do everything I wanted to do. I got to spend time with people I love. I got to teach kids like you. I got to make a difference. That's all anyone really gets to do in life, honey, and I'm grateful I got to do it. Her nephew, 11 now and trying to be brave, stayed by the door. I don't want you to go, he said, his voice cracking. I know, Maya said, and I'll miss you so much. But I need you to do something for me. I need you to remember what your dad did for me this year. How he showed up. How he loved me. And I need you to do that for people in your life. Can you promise me that? The boy nodded, wiping his eyes. After the kids left, Maya slept for hours. When she woke, it was dark outside. David was there sitting in the chair beside her bed, reading by lamplight. Hey, she said softly. He looked up, startled. Hey, how are you feeling? Like I'm ready, she said. David set down his book. Ready for what? To let go. I've been holding on because I didn't want to leave you. But David, I'm so tired. And I think it's time. David took her hand. It's okay. You don't have to hold on for me. I'll be okay. We'll all be okay. Will you? Maya asked. Really? Yes, David said. You taught me how. You taught all of us how. I didn't teach you anything, Maya said. You were the teacher. You showed me what love looks like in action. You gave me the greatest gift anyone ever gave me. You gave me back my life. You gave me a gift too, David said. You showed me what really matters. I was so caught up in work and stress and all the noise. But this year, focusing on you, on making each day count, that was the most meaningful thing I've ever done. So thank you. For letting me be part of this. For letting me love you like this. They sat in comfortable silence. Maya's breathing was labored now. Each breath took work. But she was calm. At peace, David? She said after a while. Yeah? Tell people my story. Not the cancer part. The living part. Tell them about the list. About how you helped me check everything off. Tell them they don't need a terminal diagnosis to start living. Tell them to make their own lists and start today. Right now. Not tomorrow, today. I will, David promised. I'll tell everyone. Maya died 3 days later on a Tuesday morning. David was holding her hand. The sunrise was just starting to paint the sky outside her window. It was peaceful, quiet, the way endings should be. At her memorial service, David did exactly what Maya had asked. No sadness about what was lost, only celebration of what was lived. He told everyone about the list, about their year of adventures, about how his dying sister had taught him how to live. He encouraged everyone there to write their own lists, to think about what they'd do if they knew their time was limited, and then to do those things now while they still could. My sister spent years waiting for the right time to live, David said, and cancer taught her that the right time is always now. Don't make the same mistake she made. Don't wait. After the service, dozens of people came up to David. They thanked him. They told him Maya's story had changed them. They promised to stop putting off their dreams. One man, someone David had never met, said he'd read Maya's blog, that it had inspired him to quit his corporate job and start teaching, something he'd always wanted to do but was too scared to try. A woman said she'd booked a flight to see her estranged mother after reading Maya's words about family. A teenager said Maya's letters had helped her through depression, had given her hope when she had none. David realized that Maya's impact would continue long after she was gone. The blog still got thousands of visitors every month. Her letters were being shared. Her story was spreading. In his pocket, David carried the original list, the one Maya had written on that first terrible night after her diagnosis. The paper was worn now, creased from being folded and unfolded so many times. He looked at it often, remembering. Watch a sunrise from somewhere beautiful. Check. Dance in the rain. Check. Eat gelato in Italy. Adapted, but check. Learn to play piano. Check. Make a difference. Check. Fall in love. Check. Leave something behind. Check. Every single item completed. Not always in the way Maya had originally imagined, but completed nonetheless. 6 months after Maya died, David returned to work. But he was different. He left the office at 5 every day, no matter what. He coached his son's soccer team. He took his daughter to her dance recitals. He and Rachel started traveling, taking small trips whenever they could. He kept his promise to Maya. He lived. Really lived, and he kept the blog running. He added his own posts, sharing updates about Maya's legacy. posting letters from people she'd inspired. The blog became a community, a place where people shared their own lists, their own stories of choosing to live fully despite fear and uncertainty. 1 year after Maya's death, David received a package. Inside was a book, a real published book, Maya's letters compiled and edited, with an introduction by the journalist who'd interviewed her. The publisher had reached out months ago, wanting to share her story more widely. The book was called The List: Learning to Live from Someone Who Was Dying. David held it and cried. Happy tears this time. His sister was gone, but her voice would continue. Her message would spread. She'd wanted to make a difference, and she had. She truly had. He opened the book to the dedication page. It read, "To David, who taught me that love is an action verb, and to everyone who's been waiting for permission to start living, this is it. Start today." David smiled through his tears. That was so Maya. Even in death, giving people permission to live. He called Rachel into the room, showed her the book. They sat together, flipping through the pages, reading Maya's words, remembering that incredible year. She really did it, Rachel said. She turned her tragedy into something beautiful. We all did, David said. Together. That night, David couldn't sleep. He got up and found a notebook, opened it to the first page. At the top, he wrote, "My list."